Alright, the Snail Cam is the only other cam that I will do a tutorial video on. The other cams are fairly simple to build based on other parts that we've already done in my class. So this one though is a little bit tricky. You could use some extra parameters in addition to the two that they gave you. The reason they didn't give us any more is because it's also easier to do, I believe, with construction lines. So in Inventor, I've already got my 260,000 square hole, and then I've turned on the construction line tool. Okay, and I'm going to draw a construction circle, and notice that that circle's coming out yellow. I'm going to draw two of them to start out, and I've already created a user diameter so that you can modify your diameter and make this a different size. I just initially made it 2 inches. So we'll make that outer circle 2 inch and the inner circle d divided by 2. Yeah, I forgot to make that the diameter. There we go. Okay. Next, I'm going to go ahead and draw a construction line from the top there, from one circle to the other, so it's vertical, but you can see it can still move. Okay, if we turn on down here, show all degrees of freedom, we can see that that can move, and of course down here it's showing us that the origin can rotate. Well, of course it can, it's just a point. So I want to make sure and line that vertical line up with the center point. Okay, next I'm going to put a midpoint at the midpoint of that line so that I can draw a third construction circle that goes right to that midpoint. So right now it is a little hard to see because those lines are not object lines, but I have 3 fully constrained, and my sketch is all fully constrained, 3 construction circles, and actually this line here, I could change that to a regular object line because that does give us the drop off on the Snail Cam. Then I'm going to go ahead and draw a couple more construction lines, a horizontal one from the first and the second circle, and then another horizontal one from the second to third circle. Okay, and if we look at those are both horizontal. They ended up getting drawn constrained to each other, but I need those to be at the origin. So I'll go ahead and use coincident and make sure those line up horizontally with the origin. So we see them kind of pop back into place there. And then I'll make sure I put construction points at those midpoints of those line segments. And then one more construction point back here. And I don't think it's fully constrained. Nope, I can move that. So on the second circle, okay, I want to make sure that that point, so I'll use a vertical constraint to make sure that point lines up with the origin. So now we can see that that point is lined up with the origin. So now I'm going to turn my construction tool off, and I can draw 3 3-point arcs. And I'm not really concerned with any dimensions at this point. In fact, do not put any dimensions in on them. I'm just going to draw 3 or 4 3-point arcs, where each time I'm stepping out to that next construction point, and then this last one, of course, finishes the snail up at the top. Okay, and of course you might say, oh, that looks pretty good. It says, uh-oh, 5 dimensions still needed. Well, we need to make all those arcs we just drew tangent to each other. And then that says 2 dimensions still needed. Oh, look at that. I missed. This point needs to be up at the top, so I'll just fix that with a coincident constraint. And now one more tangent constraint. Let's make that last one tangent to the outer arc. And that fixes it so that, you know, what's happening is this arc is stepping out progressively 1/4 of the way from the inner arc to the very outer arc. That's why we drew that construction point here, and then the construction point here. This comes, now this arc comes another 1/4 of the distance, and this is another 1/4, 3/4, and then finally there's the finished shape. So that's the geometry that is implied by the sketch. So now we can finish sketch and extrude and again we want to do a symmetric extrusion in my class for simplicity. Even though we print them at 3/16, we'll go ahead and for simplicity just do 1/4 inch, which is fine. Mid-plane extrusion. So that finishes up the snail cam.